Today on COO Secrets, I'm joined by Sharon Miles, COO of Chip. After starting her career in financial services, Sharon moved into fintech and joined Chip in 2019, helping scale the business from early stages to over £1 billion in AUM, supporting multiple funding rounds and building key functions from scratch. She later became COO at OakNorth, leading major growth, product innovation and international expansion, before returning to Chip late in 2025 for its next phase of growth. She's one of the top operators in UK fintech, so I am super excited to share her COO secrets with you today. Sharon, thank you for joining us on COO Secrets. It's a real pleasure. Great to see you. We've spoken a few times before, and you've got an incredible CV, and I can't wait to dive into it. But I'm conscious some of our audience might not know you. So, for those that don't, please can you introduce yourself and share how you became a COO?
Okay, so I'm Sharon Miles. I'm currently the COO here at Chip. I guess in terms of a potted whistle-stop tour, I started the bulk of my career in project management, change management, worked mainly in financial services, so the likes of G Capital is where I got my process engineering sort of black belt world that I was part of, and then moved into more of your sort of operational change in Barclays, doing day-to-day banking changes. I remember a project where I was changing the way in which checkbooks were delivered to avoid fraud. I remember that was a fun one to do. But then that morphed into program management. But it was always with an operational spin. So I was moving big operational offshore centers to different locations. And then I actually went a bit more in-house, rather than being a project manager for different functions of a bank, moving to a company where I was running the contact center and transforming that contact center, lease plan. And that was kind of my first foray into actually owning a business division in the contact center space and leasing. All of those had been in your GEs, your Barclays of this world, so big corporates. And I sort of, after about 18 years in that space, I was like, I need a change. I need a different, there's only so many times you can try and turn a super tanker around.
True.
The plus sides were the incredible training you get, the scale of changes you're delivering, but the speed was a bit of an interesting moment. And then sort of switched into fintech, initially going to a German company called Deposit Solutions, who are now merged with Raisin, a deposit platform, and spent some time with them building out their UK and US non-German platform for the rest of the world. And then Chip came calling. And at that point, Chip was relatively small. We were above a vape shop in trendy Shoreditch, figuring out how we're going to build this thing, or what were we going to build, and spent 4.5 fantastic years building that business up. And it was brilliant. Learned so many things along the way, had some incredibly crazy moments with it, which I'm sure we'll cover at some point in this discussion. But then I got the opportunity to go and be the Group COO at OakNorth Bank. And the team at Chip had been wonderful at the time about it, going, it's a great opportunity, we get it. And so I spent 2.5 years in OakNorth Bank, and that was really interesting as a COO of a bank, the different regulatory environment that you have to operate in, and it's a lot more stricter, bigger numbers involved. Did my time there, got some stripes, and did some incredible things there. But then my heart was in Chip because we started Chip, and so very recently I came back. So I wanted to finish this mission.
I love that. A boomerang hire. We see this more often than ever before, really, where you just have such a connection to a mission, especially when you come in the earlier stages and you're part of the DNA of the business. It makes a lot of sense to come back and see it through.
I never lost. I always stayed in touch with the team here. I was like, what's going on? Where you at? Come on, what's happening?
I love it. Well, congratulations on the return. Can't wait to dig into all of that. You've seen such an interesting blend of bigger businesses, early stage scrappy businesses, companies of real scale. And I think that's probably where we'll start. Clearly, you've operated at that kind of high growth fintech stage, the much more established environments. So how does the scope of your COO roles, how do they differ in those sorts of very different types of companies?
So I think when you're in a in the startup phase, a COO is everything. One day you are sorting out a people issue and you're learning it as you go, depending on the size of your business. 10 minutes later, you are trying to figure out funding and the ways you're going to do that. Another minute, you're dealing with company's house and getting something registered and some paper forms that still have to be used paper in a post office.
Oh, it's wild, isn't it?
And in the next minute, you're all around a whiteboard thinking, what's the next thing we're going to build? So you are millions of hats in any one day. And actually, the COO networks really help in those situations because there's no way you will know everything. And you need to tap into the network of people you know and go, seriously, look, I just don't know how to do this. This is the most random thing that has landed on my desk. Has anyone else done this? Can you show me what to do? So that was kind of the startup world. And then suddenly as you grow, or you move on to businesses that are they're in scale up or they have scaled up, what I would sort of say regulatory presence becomes more important, and you have to take a bit more of a stricter view of what you're actually accountable for. In my world today, as was at the bank, I was responsible for client money, and there are some very strict rules around that, and you can't compromise in those situations. So you go from being this creative, dynamic, trying to look for all these entrepreneurial type opportunities and being a bit scrappy and rolling your sleeves up, to suddenly having this hat on, which is, no, we cannot do that. We must do this. And it feels a little bit alien to start with, but you know you're next on the line for it. So, and your name's on a register and you've got SMF responsibilities, but you kind of still need to keep a hold of your DNA of rolling your sleeves up. So I think that's where I certainly saw a change in my role. And interesting, now that I'm back at Chip and it had grown considerably in that period, I still need that. You know, I still need to be really clear about everybody's accountabilities, and people's living up to those accountabilities as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's a real breadth. You kind of covered everything, and I guess the OakNorth experience will have helped you at this next stage of growth for Chip, and that's it sort of rounds out the CV brilliantly. In terms of the actual skill set, when you go from sort of building to scaling, how did your COO skill set or toolkit have to evolve?
So I think actually it comes from the stuff I'd done before. And I'd say there's two parts to it. 'Cause sometimes people do ask me, even members of the team, like, I want to be a COO one day. What do I need to do? And I kind of give two pieces of advice to it. One is you need to have the ability to be ready to deliver changes or think through changes, think through problems. Doesn't matter about the situation. You don't need to be a technical expert in, I don't know, pensions or investment funds, or if you're in financial services. What you do need to know is how to solve a problem or how to deliver a change. So that's where project management skills, agile skills, or, just stick it on a whiteboard and get people in a room to figure it out. Doesn't have to be even complex than that. You definitely need those. And you definitely need to have the ability to figure out within that problem or change, what's the really important stuff and what's the nice to haves and would be great if, because some of that will have to compromise along the way, depending on the speed or pace or results that you're getting. And then the other piece, and it's a bit hard for what I would call up and coming people who want to be COOs or in that space, is you do actually have to, in my mind, doesn't mean it's the exact way to do it, you have to have some experience of doing. So I've been lucky enough in some respects where I was in a change environment, but then I eventually went on to actually running a function. Because running a function, you actually learn that trade. So I've worked in a finance function, started off as a financial analyst, started out as an accountant very, very long time ago, but I know how that works. I then ran operational teams, processing activities, running that factory as such, and actually learning payment flows, learning all of this stuff, and understanding when you've got customers calling you every day, How do you answer those? How do you run a team that answers all of those questions? So I do think as a COO, there is a bit of a gap in your capabilities if you haven't run more than one type of function, because a COO never runs just operations. There is always either an add-on of HR, legal, procurement, supply chain, finance. There can be lots of combinations, and you don't necessarily have to run all of them, but I think you need to have had hands-on day-to-day responsibility for at least two, just to know how to manage two different flows of a function. So the people team have a different set of ways of thinking and operating to an operational team. But you need to be able to manage both at the same time. So that functional, training ground actually, or battle scarred and battle ready is another way to call it, combined with the change skills, I think is kind of the key ingredients I would say is important.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And it gives you that credibility and that expertise, but also, if you don't have it, you are exposed, aren't you? And of course, there are COOs that will have maybe been very operational and not had exposure to other functions, but you just will have so much more comfort coming into that, and the team will have more confidence in your ability to lead if you've got a little bit more to you.
And one of the benefits in the startup space is that's actually quite a good place to pick up those skills.
True.
Because the people team might start off as your left arm.
True.
And eventually you hire one person. So even if you've not done it before, you can be learning it on the job if there's only a team of 6 of you, for example. So the startup world and the sort of the smaller companies is actually quite a good way to start getting those functional ticks without necessarily having to have the scale. Or if you're in a bigger company, in a bigger business, that's where I would certainly, if the COO track is something you're thinking about, is how do you get into one of those teams for a year or two? And get that experience.
Great advice. Thank you for sharing. You mentioned this problem-solving skill set being absolutely fundamental to COOs, and I wholeheartedly agree. So you'll have seen a fair few problems over the years that you've had to solve for.
Yes.
So talk us through some of those challenges. What stands out to your mind, and what have you learned from them?
I've seen so many. I'm trying to think of ones that aren't controversial enough to be interesting. I've had ones where I was running a transformation, moving one offshore bank to the operating teams and processes from one location offshore to a big operational offshore centre several thousand miles away. And I thought, we'd done all the typical stuff, ran the process models, done the migration planning to within an inch of its life. As we started the communications with the teams, and this team, you need to train that team over there in another country, they got sort of upset and concerned that their job might be at risk. It wasn't at risk, but might be at risk. And the entire bank went out on strike the next day.
Oh, wow.
I was like, oh my God, how do I make that phone call to head office to tell them that the bank has gone on strike and I'm now being called to the specific country's business minister to go and explain myself. So that was an interesting day. Thankfully it was fine, sorted it out, said this is what is happening, set out the plans, made it clear. Everyone returned to work 2 days later, which was, everyone ignored the message to come back to work the next day. I've dealt with things with, we've had dodgy staff. It happens. Not everyone's a good egg. How do you deal with that whilst keeping everybody else focused? My approach to those sorts of things, there are some red lines. You cross them, you're out. And I think that builds trust in a team, but it can feel quite brutal at the time. But I think if you're clear, and then solving problems that are just really difficult to solve, where we're trying to build products that customers will buy or invest in or use, doesn't always work. And you have to try again, and you have to try again. And you have to learn to iterate quickly, and you have to think about, well, if we want to iterate quickly, are we building quickly enough, or are we knowing what our next thing's going to be if it shouldn't work, what contingency planning? And I think that's probably the hardest, slowest, long burn of a problem. as opposed to these fires that suddenly happen. Fires, I always think, be clear on what you're doing. You know, there are red lines you should never cross, and be incredibly clear on communications. Generally, you'll get there. The other ones, I think, is just dogged determination and grit and calmness that get you through it.
That swan-like,
yes.
mantra.
I think there's that saying, slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
Yes.
I think that is really hard to do, but is incredibly important as a COO, because everyone else will be flapping.
Yeah, that's so true. And you need to be that calming presence that just brings clarity and keeps everyone focused, despite often the chaos that comes with startup life. There's always something going wrong.
And I think some experiences I've had there is, it's often in those moments of, sometimes it feels like blind panic, but it's not. It's just everybody trying their best, and it's always just almost too many cooks. I think it's always a good trick is to actually just make it really clear, this is what we do know. So there's a ton of stuff we actually already know and we don't have to discuss. Put that to the side. This is the stuff we don't know, and this is, so let's actually really figure out the real problem we're trying to solve, not talk about a million other things at the same time and feel like we're still working on it.
Yeah. And I think all of the things you said, I love all of that. And it's so, and I know COOs that will be watching this and listening to this will probably be like, oh, I've been there. But it also just shows the incredible levels of resilience you need to have as a COO, because whether it is making difficult decisions on staff, whether it's handling something that's come completely out of left field that can, who would have thought a bank would go on strike? You know, the things that you just can never prepare yourself for, but it is that sort of that ability to stay calm under pressure and not let that just kind of stop you in your tracks, because you just have to keep going.
And, you know, I have like caught myself out a few times as well, where, you know, you say all these things in this sort of situation. You say, yeah, of course, this is what you do. But I think one of the hardest things for COOs and people in these types of roles is trying to do it all yourself. And so when you're trying to solve these problems or trying to work through things, COOs tend to be quite practical, logical people in their sort of characteristics. And part of that is that, look, if we just give it here, I'll sort it out, because you want to get things moving. And you can end up with such a huge to-do list or things to do, and it can get overwhelming in times. Sure. And I think that's one of the, because the job doesn't have, I'm sure if you spoke to you've spoken to so many COOs, the job descriptions are never the same.
Literally never.
Literally never. And because of that, you always end up with this really set of random things that just end up on your plate. Yeah. And they can take time, they can just grow and grow and grow, and can become overwhelming, and you can lose sight of the really important things. And you then end up in any given day picking some random item just to give yourself that moment of satisfaction, I've achieved something today, as opposed to inching forward 20 problems that need solving.
Yeah, COOs are often real victims of their own success, aren't they? You know, especially in the early days of a business, you are often, you've got the people hat, the finance hat, the operational hat, the customer, and that can all of a sudden become you're the go-to person for everyone, and you're the sparring partner to the founder or CEO who's only going to trust you for these key, and then before you know it, unless very strict boundaries are put in place, or as you hire, you know, great talent, that can become very overwhelming.
And I think that's the moments where you've got to learn to try and delegate, or try and be honest, saying, I can't get that done right now. I just can't. I've got these umpteen things. I can do 5. Yeah. And saying that I think these 2 could either wait, or can someone else do it? And you feel, oh, if I'm admitting it, am I still good enough?
Yeah, but it's so
you have to, otherwise
you
end up being a bit rubbish at all of it.
Yeah, totally. And I think for any aspiring COO to hear that is really important, because so much of the heart of a great partnership between a COO and a CEO or founder is trust. It's the ability to be open and sometimes that comes from a place of vulnerability, but
Yeah.
it will allow you to set the right boundaries and then deliver better,
Yeah.
as opposed to getting swamped, overwhelmed, and then ultimately failing or
Absolutely.
underachieving or not fulfilling your
Yeah.
potential. And a lot of this builds into this feeling of COOs are often underappreciated, in my opinion, and they often have to handle a huge amount of pressure. A lot goes on to them. So I wondered if you could share sort of a moment where you've had to make a difficult operational decision, something that was high pressure, and what it taught you about what great COO leadership really means.
I guess one example, I talked earlier about having, as you get into larger businesses and you become, you get more licensing, etc. The COO can often hold SMF responsibilities. Yeah. And there was a scenario where we were looking to launch a product, a new financial product, and we, as part of the COO actual responsibilities in the business, was those payment flows and reconciliations, and client money is in the right place at the right time. Testing was almost done, so they want to say, right, this is the go, no go, can we go? And big meeting, it was going to deliver huge revenues. If we didn't launch that week based on the go, no go, it would have to hit another 3 weeks' time because of the app release slots at the time. And looking at the go, no go, I said, well, I'm fine with everything apart from I can't sign off the testing, because this testing hasn't actually proven that this money will get to here. So everything else looks great to me from my opinion, but I can't approve until I see this. Tech guys were like, well, we can't show you that right now, but we could do it after launch. And I'm like, well, no. In that meeting, there must have been 20, 30 people who were all ready to go. Millions of pounds of lost revenue were at stake by waiting 3 weeks. Had the CEO going, what do you mean? You're really seriously going to put a block on this because you've not seen these numbers come through? I said, yes. And unfortunately, at the time, we ended up in a bit of a ding-dong with each other in front of all the other people. And I said, look, it's my responsibility to make sure this happens. And everything the team have done is great. Is there a way before a certain day? I mean, when can they, if they could show me, someone could show me this actually working, then I'm good to go. Right here, right now, no one can. So it's a no. So I think in that moment, and I did call people out later saying, don't put me in that position again. That's what I'm responsible for. But you've got a team of people who've sweat blood and tears to get to that moment. And I'm the one having to say yes, but no. And interestingly, after the session had broken off, a couple of the engineering guys said, actually, we think we might have a way. And I'm like, great. Show me what that is. If you can get that done before the cutoff for the app release, fine. But my position is still the same. But if you can do that, brilliant. But actually, in that moment, it was when my blood was rushing up to my ears went bright red, everyone's looking at me, and you still said no.
That's so stressful.
But they did figure it out.
There we go.
In the long run, but yeah, you have to make those decisions.
Yeah, stay true to your principles and did the right call, as hard as that can be, and that's often...
It was horrible.
Not something you want to relive, so thank you for sharing.
Made sure the go, no-go criteria were super clear before putting me in that situation.
Yeah, fair. Well, it's a really good example. I feel like we should talk about Chip. You've returned after some time away. So what really, I know you clearly have an unbelievable connection to the brand, but talk to us a bit about sort of why you've come back now. What are some of the really exciting things on the horizon for you, particularly as a business, but also you as a COO?
Yeah, so I guess I did mention earlier about, when you start a mission, you really want to see it through. Definitely that's part of it. We got the business profitable just before, literally on the time I was leaving, which was great. And I said, right, I'm leaving you in a good situation. Yes. And thankfully they exponentially grew from there on in as well, which is amazing. And I think there was that mission piece to come back for, but also I think the team that we have here, particularly myself, working with Alex and Simon, the founders, and the rest of the executive committee, we sort of operate in the most authentic way. I've never worked anywhere so authentic. No agendas, no, the only reason we all turn up here every day is to make Chip better. And there's no egos involved. And it's very hard to find places where there's zero ego, and it's quite rare. So that was easily solvable for me. So I was like, right, that's the perfect environment for me as a person, my character and my style. And I guess over the years of nearly 28-ish years working now, I'd never always thought of that as so important. I thought, okay, I've got my career ambitions, I've got my where I want to get to in the career ladder mentality, I've got what achievements do I want to have. And so you place sort of markers on those or salary things you want to do. But then it was only when you step away from an environment, you go, hold on a minute, that working environment, those working relationships, I didn't realize how much value I actually placed on it till it wasn't there. So that was an interesting moment for myself individually. But then since coming back, Chip has evolved quite a bit over the last few years since I joined. Originally we were a nifty savings app doing auto saves, etc. We then expanded around the time over the next few years into investment products, additional savings products, etc. Now we're evolving more into, I think even Chip itself is growing up, and we're looking into the wealth management space, and that is really exciting. So how can we get more value from our customers? How can we give them more value? But it's also at an interesting, what I'd say, new revolution of AI. So coming in at that point with an evolving business model and evolving business capabilities is incredibly exciting. So it's like, we can do so much with this, with a team that I love working with. So it's like, why wouldn't you?
Win-win.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a customer.
Good.
A very happy customer. And it's been very cool to see the evolution of Chip. And I know what an important role you've had in that. And I can really see how, especially the sort of stage of the journey you're on now, there's just so much
And I think from a professional perspective for myself, it's about getting that satisfaction of working and building something special with the people I want to build it with, seeing the customers like yourself really benefiting from it, but then also our investors. As a business that's hugely crowdfunded, sort of thousands and thousands of that crowdfunders, I want to get us to a moment where we can give back to those investors who've been with us along the journey, and that's a part of my career I've never done before. So it's like, that's my personal ambition as well.
I love that. Well, I'm here for it. I'm supporting you all the way as one of those very, very small crowd. I went through a period of time where I did a few, and it was into friends' businesses, and then there was just a couple of extra ones. I just thought, this is just so interesting, novel, and clearly have a great team behind. So I feel like Chip is going to be one of the few of my little angel investors that will come good. One of the reasons we wanted to do this series was to demystify the mythical COO role, because they are all so different. And so for any sort of ambitious operators that have got their eyes on that COO job, what are some of the parts of the role that never appear on the job description, but end up taking up a lot of energy, or being like more important than one might think?
That's a really good question. Because you try and think, what is the stuff that's not on the job description? I think the relationship that you have with the CEO or the founder, whoever, you need to be working sort of hand in glove. You don't need to be a perfect fit, but you need to have incredible lines of communication back and forth. And over time, that starts to evolve into, you can predict how each other's going to react. So therefore, there might be some things that don't come your way because the CEO knows it's not your thing. That's fine. Don't feel like you have to be the person that the CEO always goes to. Don't be precious on those typical things. And those things, that's where the random stuff comes in. Can be anything. Literally can be anything. And it's interesting because there's been a development over recent years of the role of a chief of staff. And it's like, well, what's the difference? Huge difference, I think. And I almost see the chief of staff as being in the CEO's office. The COO is running the business every day. And running the business every day means that the CEO can go out and look at new strategies, be entrepreneurial, be creative, knowing that the floor and the business is under control.
Yeah.
And to keep it under control, genuinely, is if the team are saying that the toilets are blocked and they're all a bit disgruntled and morale is low that day because no one seems to fix it, and you don't have an office manager, who do you think they're going to look at?
Yeah.
And if the CEO meets with somebody who they think is really interesting, would like to come in and talk to them about something, needs some of the exec team involved, who do you think is going to have to cobble together a pitch or a presentation or something about Chip when you don't know why they're coming? And when they do arrive, you realise that what you have got prepared is totally useless, totally irrelevant. Who's going to have to just wing it?
Yeah.
And who do you think is the person that when a category of insurance that you'd never needed before as a business, but suddenly you now do need because of a product or a scale or something, you've moved a building, whatever has happened, never been done before, you're like, oh. It's generally stuff you've never done before.
Yeah, yeah.
And you will never have done it before. And
Keeps you on your toes.
you just have to figure it out.
Yeah.
It's usually, you ask everyone around you, and I'm very open with our CEO, and I have no idea how to do that. I will say, I have no idea. I'll figure it out. If I can't figure it out, I'll let you know. And I'll try a day or two, get still have no clue. And then I'll start asking wider and say, look, do you know anybody? Because do you know anyone you can put me in touch with?
That's the problem solving skill set again.
Yeah.
And it's the willingness to take things on.
I think it's you've got to have no ego, because some of the stuff that lands on your plate is not the glory work.
Yeah.
You're not the person bringing in the revenue every day. You're not the one who's won 1 million customers. You're not the person who's launched this beautiful feature. So it's not the glory job.
But it's the engineering.
It is, exactly. And I think the bit that I get most satisfaction from is when the exec team or the CEO turns around and just knows that everything's under control. So as a COO, you've got to be comfortable that the only time sort of stuff becomes high profile is when it's going wrong.
Yeah.
You will never get the glory for stuff just going well, because that's just supposed to happen.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it as it is. The sales teams, the marketing teams, the product and tech teams, they're always launching or winning. And all the coverage tends to be about that. There's never coverage about it's just normal, which is the COO world. You'll only get coverage if something's gone wrong.
And that's why I find there's a lot of the COOs I know, not all, but the vast majority are incredibly low ego.
Yeah.
They don't mind that, because for them, success is the business just moving in the right direction. Exactly. Don't want the glory. And therefore, it's one of the reasons we're doing this, is to shine a light on the best COOs in Europe and show how important they are to the success of this ecosystem and startups. That you are the unheralded
You've got to kind of get satisfaction. You have to genuinely get satisfaction from things running smoothly is a buzz.
Yes. Yeah.
You can't wait for the buzz to come from someone going, oh my God, you're so amazing. Yeah,
fair enough. And clearly you have a great relationship with the founders here, and that dynamic is such an important part of a COO, CEO or founder
It's critical,
relationship.
I think.
Yeah. Have you got any sort of little tips for anyone that may be embarking on their first COO role?
You have to be authentic, be honest, and be honest about stuff that kind of lifts, it's a bit of a rude saying, lifts your skirt a bit, you don't know. And if you don't try and blag it, don't kind of fake it till you make it, because you'll build the trust better where the CEO and yourself's relationship is based on, I don't know this. I think this is the right answer. I'm not 100% sure. Should we try it, knowing that neither of us knows it 100%? Because then if it does go wrong, okay, we didn't know that we were going to, either of us was 100% right. And stuff will go wrong. And that's fine. If you said, I know how to do this, fine, and then it goes wrong, that's where trust can kind of be eroded. And there's also, I guess, you're not pitching each other. Like, I never pitched the CEO. I just kind of talk normally. I say things normally. If I want to get something down that needs to be written, I won't create some beautiful work. It's not like he's going to mark your homework. It's got to be a real working relationship in my mind. And it doesn't need to be glossy.
Yes, yeah, that's really important.
And I think if you compare that to other functions where, say, the commercial teams or marketing team, it is all very glossy, and that's fine because that is what they do. Yeah. And that's right. In the COO-CEO relationship, it is a very much sleeves rolled up working relationship. And there are times together you have to be glossy to the external world. Totally get that. And I mean, I've been lucky enough in CHIP where I also sit on the board at CHIP. And I think the reason I was brought in to be within the board as well is who runs the place day to day, who knows the inner workings of fraud, payments, the actual how the pipes of this business work, and enables the board to also be more externally facing and thinking. And you kind of realize if you demonstrate how well you know your stuff, be honest about the bits you don't. And I have to say, there's this other bit, is you do actually just have to get on. Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one that you can't really, that's not on an interview piece or a...
Chemistry.
It's just, do you get on?
It's everything, it really is. And it's why in the interview process, I mean, COO search, we've been doing it for so long, and chemistry is actually at the heart of it, which is why you have a very rigorous interview process. But actually, for me, the key to a good COO search process is actually in the extra chats. It's the informal debriefs and the coffees and the dinners at the end of the process. It's sometimes bringing your other half into the equation. It's connecting on a much deeper level because you need to be in the trenches.
And I mean, on a typical day, even here, on a typical day, I don't think I speak to the CEO apart from in meetings until some point later in the day when you've got back to your desk after a day of meetings and you're just kind of clearing up a few messages, and you kind of do that and then you start chatting. Next thing you know, it's like, oh, crikey, I need to go home. And we've been talking for 45 minutes. I can't tell you what topic. I don't know what, it was not a planned topic, but we're just bouncing random stuff of things that is going through our brains. And you wouldn't have that conversation if it was like you didn't get on with them, because you kind of like, oh, I need to go home. I'm going to go home.
So true.
And that's how I think it is really important.
Yes, and it's probably a watch out for anyone that doesn't have that maybe that isn't the right partnership, because it'll be hard to really go through the difficult times if you don't have that sort of dynamic.
And it's hard to force it as well. Yeah, totally. And it's not to say you couldn't be professionally very good colleagues together. That's
and you can be very different personalities, and 100%. Actually it's often important to have that complementary nature.
But I think there's that, as you said, this chemistry, getting on bit is critical. Yeah,
couldn't agree more. Just talking a bit more about leadership and broader culture before we get to our final wrap-up questions. How do you balance being that person who drives performance and holds people to account, which is a really important part of the COO job, but also protects the culture and the softer sides of the business that often attract people to companies and keep them motivated during often periods of like very intense growth and like you're dealing with some really hard problems to solve? How do you balance the two of those things?
Not always well.
That's very honest of you.
I think it's probably a combination of three things. I mean, on the results piece is when we're pushing for results, am I getting responses that somebody has done everything in their power to do, and have they thought forward enough to say, okay, some delivery might be delayed or a build might be delayed. It's like, okay, is that something you could have controlled? Is it, 2 people were off on holiday. You should have known that. Like, that's not cool. Plan better. Oh, well, our third party had an outage. You couldn't control that. So it's knowing when it's bad management versus just stuff out of their control, and go, okay, tell me when you can replan. Oh, how long is it going to take you to replan? When can you replan by? So always knowing like the next steps and what's the next variation on the plan. So how do you pivot? What's the next variation? And set it out and stick to it. Rather than worrying too much on stuff that's, oh, well, we didn't know that, and we're kind of rabbits in headlights for a bit now. It's like, okay, take 2 days, replan, come back with a new plan. Yeah. So that's the driving the performance piece. But when stuff is going wrong, and Chip, for example, is a great culture, all the places I've worked have been a great culture, actually. That's where communications is key. Yeah. And there's kind of, you get the CEO, founder, mission, vision approach, which is fine, and it is needed for everybody to know where they're going. But then you've got the on the ground version. So how do you make sure people give that feedback again? I don't get that. Does this mean if I read between the lines that that's going to happen to them, or this is what we're doing? And are we going to miss our bonuses this year, or something? It could be a million things. And I think in those scenarios where you got, right, there's a great glossy comms got done to the rest of the to the whole business. Few teams are floundering, they're feeling not right about things, not quite there. One, you've got to be on the pulse a little bit of how is the vibe. And then two, be straight about, well, go and see the teams, go and talk to them, saying, what's the problem? Like, talk to me straight, what's the problem? What do you not like? What do you not understand? What's going on? And then answer honestly back. Yeah. There are those moments where you can't give them all the information. And those ones say, I can't give you all the information. You know,
fair.
Don't
just be direct.
Just be direct, because then they go, okay, fine. Like there's no other place to go. And then I guess the other piece of it is when you're really focusing on sort of results and delivery, and people genuinely have been busting a gut everywhere. I think it's take a moment and have a bit of fun with that. Like so true. The fact that the result didn't get to where you wanted to, but you know everyone gave 100%. Let everyone have a breathe out moment, whether it's in the pub, whether it's just, recognizing, guys, we've had a strong week, like thank yous and that sort of stuff. And,
so
I'm knackered too. I'm tired.
Sometimes people just need to hear that.
I'm tired. I'm up to about here. I hope you all have a great weekend and just rest.
Don't contact me.
Please, unless there's a major issue or a major incident, don't contact me. I need a cold, dark room with a flannel on my head.
Oh my goodness. Again,
just being authentic back.
I think it's really respected from teams, isn't it? We're all human, and you don't always need to put a brave face in it. We all get tired. Startup life is brutal at times. And it's also a lot of fun, but those things can coexist. And
I also think it also enables the CEO or founder to retain that space of leading the mission and keeping on mission. True. And this goes for other exec team members as well. I would say you kind of are the ones that are on the floor. And I mean, it's a bit of an old saying because you've got teams all over the world these days, but you need to be tapped into what is going on. So true. And put your arms around people sometimes. Yeah,
great advice. We're sadly getting to the end. A very quick one on Chip. I think from this conversation and from hearing about you and your leadership style, a lot of people are going to be like, I want to work there. So just tell us quickly, if you don't mind, like what you look for in talent when you're interviewing them.
So we're looking for a lot of AI execs and specialists at the moment. So if you do know anyone. What we look for in general is somebody who, self-starter initiative, without a doubt, is prepared to see their day-to-day, great, but how can I do more with that? How can I 10x it? What would that really mean for a customer? So I think the customer lens is really important. One of the favorite questions of my founder to most people is, are you a Chip customer? Do you believe in our mission? Do you like?
So I would get a job.
You'd be in, James. And be part of it, like be vested. Nice. So we look for people who would really be vested in the business. Sometimes they're not the most hyper skilled in the thing that we're looking for. They might be, if we've got 10 to 15 candidates, we don't always go for the one that's got the strongest CV. It's the one who's the most vested and will go for it.
Nice. Love that. Great tips.
Yeah.
Tips. Thank you. We're sadly at an end. I could keep chatting for ages, but we've got 3 quick fire questions. In 2026, what skills do COOs need to have in their toolkit?
Maximizing AI for your own time. Maximizing AI for the rest of the business, to, for productivity, and self-belief. Keep going.
Great answer. And what do COOs need to stop doing in 2026?
Everything.
Yes.
Know where your limits are. And
boundaries.
Yeah, know your limits.
Nice. And finally, what is the secret to being a great COO?
A combination of problem solving, logic and clarity for everybody else, and resilience. Yeah, I think those 3. I'll go with those 3 for now.
Love it. Sharon, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm super excited to see how CHIP develops. And thank you so much for sharing your COO secrets with us today.
Anytime.
Cheers.
Thank you.